Now, India's joined the exclusive club of nations armed with intercontinental ballistic missiles after successfully test firing its own called Agni 5. Translated from Hindi as fire, the rocket can carry a nuclear payload as far as Europe and China. Well, for more on how this launch might affect the balance of power in the region, let's talk to Dr. Sreeram Chaulia of the Jindal School of International Affairs. Thanks very much for being with us here in the program, sir. Now, first off, developing an intercontinental ballistic missile is no doubt a serious commitment, both cost-wise and politically. So does India really feel so threatened at the moment?
I think it's not very country-specific, but the government has issued a statement that it is keeping in mind the possibility of various threat scenarios that India faces in the region and beyond. An ICBM, with 5,000 kilometers range, certainly can target most parts of China. And I think the Indian strategic establishment has felt vulnerable, especially with regard to China, because it has long had this capability of keeping the whole of India within its striking range. I don't think that relations between the two countries are that bad at the moment that we need to think about each posing a threat to the other. But certainly, they, foreign policy establishments think in terms of capabilities, not intentions. India and China may be having a relatively smooth relationship, especially in the economic sphere, but there are tensions and there are lingering mistrusts that go back to over 50 years. And so I think it's a matter of capabilities that we're talking about, and evening out the capabilities certainly helps keep a rough balance of power in Asia. There's also this naval race going on simultaneous to the missile launches, and Pakistan continues to have its own nuclear program and its own missile delivery system. So I think India feels like it is in a neighborhood where it cannot take anybody's intention for guaranteed, and therefore it needs to help itself through these kinds of tests.
Well, let's now talk about China's reaction a little bit more. As you mentioned earlier, both India and China are neighbors and they're enjoying economic ties, etc. But, how will this launch, or might this launch change the situation in the relationship between the two countries? Because there is a view that Beijing has long considered India a minor player in the Asian power. So with this launch, is this likely to change?
I think there's still, if you do a tail of the tape kind of thing, clearly China leads in most military hardware parameters, is ahead of India, except perhaps in aircraft carriers, where India has a small advantage in the Navy. But otherwise, in rough overall terms, the balance of power is very much still loaded in favor of China. And part of it has to do with China's growth as an economy, which is much faster than India's, relatively speaking. So as a percentage of GDP, even if India spends as much as China does, our GDP itself is, 4 times as small as China. So we will be smaller. And I think the Chinese media has reacted quite interestingly to the ICBM launch. They have said that India should not be under a delusion that it is able to match, and that it is actually no match to China in all parameters taken together. But, for deterrence, it doesn't take equality. For deterrence, you just need, a credible minimum deterrent, which India does have in the form of, a fairly small but robust nuclear program and now a delivery system.
Some experts say the launch may actually provoke a new regional arms race as China and India strive to outgun each other. How valid, in your opinion, is this concern?
It is a bother. It's certainly a concern. If you think about it, the maximum strategic rivalries in the world are now all hovering around Asia and Asia Pacific. And if there is a way for confidence building, both India and China have had, confidence building measures and talks about their border dispute and about the region and about how they could cooperate and coexist. But I think, we also need we need to look at the larger global factors here. The United States considers itself a resident power in the Asia Pacific. And that creates its own tensions and anomalies insofar as it frames the India-China relationship in a different light. The Chinese think that India is being used against them, and India wants to assert itself as somewhat independent, both of China and the United States. But then China is growing, and it's growing at a much faster pace than India. So India will have to play a much more calibrated role than just viewing itself as a swing state between China and the US. And I think, Russia certainly should help because they have very strong strategic ties both with China and with India. And I have been arguing that, Russia can build confidence, through a trilateral mechanism. There used to be a Russia, India, China mechanism, which has been discontinued. And I think, that's an ideal forum for some of these mistrusts to be smoothed, if not totally overcome.
All right, Mr. Sreeram Chaulia, thanks very much indeed for putting the situation in context for us here, Professor and Vice Dean of the Jindal School of International Affairs.